Howdy folks, Sapper here, aka Sean. How is everybody doing? I know it's been a while since I've put out a video. I've been playing quite a few video games lately, and then just recently I decided to get back into board gaming. I was looking at Compass Games website one day, and I happened to see this game right here that you see before you, Stellar Horizons. I had already owned High Frontier and I'd already owned Spacecorp. And I hadn't played Spacecorp. I've owned it since I pre-ordered it, so I got it, as soon as it was available. I mean, GMT shipped it to me, but I had never even cracked the shrink wrap on it. High Frontier I've had for a couple of years, and I've attempted to play it a couple of times. But the idea of a build your own space program game, kind of has always appealed to me. And it probably appeals to a lot of people. Like, space is very interesting to a wide variety of people. And I'm no different. I mean, most of my videos that you see on my YouTube channel tend to deal with war games. And this is one of the exceptions. I do own some Euros, but my tastes have kind of swung away from the Euro style game and more to war game and strategy games. So I kind of wanted to just make a little comparison of the three that I own. I think there might be a couple of others out there that I can't think of right now, but I think these three are probably the big three that deal with building your own space program. Like, yeah, you've got Terraforming Mars, but that's like kind of focused more on, and I don't own Terraforming Mars, so I can't really speak too much about it, but it kind of focuses in on Mars more than anything else. So it's not like a build your own space program. I think there's Leaving Earth that's also out there. I don't own that one, but from what I've seen of Leaving Earth, it is a build your own space program basically that covers from the beginning of the space program in the 50s and the 60s. And I'm not sure how far it goes, but I don't think it goes into the far future like these three do. I could be wrong, but I don't own Leaving Earth. And there could be some others out there that I'm not aware of, but these are the three that I own. And I kind of want to cover, what I think. And again, these are all my opinions on these three games. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. So take whatever I say with a grain of salt. But I'm gonna kind of address the components of each game. I'm gonna address the rules and the play of each game, and I'm gonna finally address the fun factor of each game. Are there more? Could I break it down into more categories? Yeah, I could. But again, I'm not a review site. I'm not an unboxing site. I'm not a first look site. I'm not any kind of site like that. I video my gameplay more for, it's like a video diary, right? Like some people like to log their plays of stuff. Well, I do too, but when it comes down to writing or typing up a long report or whatever and putting it up on Board Game Geek or whatever, I just don't want to do that. To me, video is an easier media for me to do those things. So there you have it. There's kind of the preamble. So let's start with, we'll go ahead and start with High Frontier. So the components, let's go ahead and move over here. So components of High Frontier. So let me see if I can get this map in. There you go. So the map is probably one of my favorite. Let me move this stuff out of the way. So the map is probably one of my favorite maps of any kind of game out there. There's some other stuff out there that I really like, but for some reason, like, I look at this map, and I think the same can be said for a lot of other people, is they look at that map and it's just like, wow, what is that? That looks really cool. So the map really draws you in. And that's one of the things that initially attracted me to High Frontier was, number one, it's a build your own space program. Okay, I like that. And the map is just really cool. And this is half the map. So there's another half the map that extends to the outer planets. So this only goes to, by the looks of it, so this barely makes it to Jupiter. So there's another section of the map which goes to Jupiter, or covers Jupiter and beyond. So you can see that Jupiter's not actually on the map out here. So the map is gorgeous. Lots of colors, lots of interesting things to look at. Like here you got Earth, and you can see the electromagnetic field. And there's just, there's all kinds of really cool stuff that just like catch your eye. The other components, just simple stuff. You got, wooden cubes, you got plastic discs, nothing groundbreaking. I think you can get, people have made like nicer looking ships and stuff. Like these cubes are your ships, right? Or I think the plastic rocket is your ship. So people have made nicer stuff for it. There's nicer components. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot. This is the second edition I believe this is the second edition. It's not the one that they just released, or he's coming out with, Eklund is coming out with another version of it, which, I've got my opinions on that. You've got your different factions. So you've got the European Space Agency, who is at the United Nations, that's Japan, NASA, and then Russia. So, just simple cards, right? All this stuff, nothing's, there's not a lot of super chrome bits in this game, right? Pretty simple games, or pretty simple bits. So those are the components. And I think the components to High Frontier are really, they're good. The map by far is the defining component, I believe, of High Frontier. So now we'll go over to Stellar Horizons. So Stellar Horizons, we've got factions. So there's more factions than just this, but these cards are pretty big. So I only got 2 of them out. I believe you've got North America. Well, you got North America, you got China. There is Asia, which is India. There is South America, which covers more than, it's like Brazil and all. It's like the major countries of South America. Russia, and maybe the Europeans. I don't remember exactly, but so you got your different factions, which, give you, each faction is unique, right? The same can be said for High Frontier. Each faction has its own different faction abilities. You've got your components here as far as your chits that you're going to move around the board. You've got, your different robotic explorers like orbiters and telescopes. And there's a couple of others in there. You've got your launch vehicles. This is how you get stuff into space. And then you've got your, there you go. You got your crew vehicles, which that's how you do manned exploration and stuff like that. So the components there are pretty nice. You've got a nice large tech tree. And then, so you don't have a board per se like you do in High Frontier, but you set up your solar system, right? So like the scenario that I played was just the first one, which is be the first one to colonize Mars with a settlement value of 20 or something like this. So you don't use all the planets, right? You only use Venus, Earth, and Mars. So you got Venus, you've got Mars, you've got Earth, Mercury, you got all your small planets, you got your inner planets, from the sun to the asteroids, your rocky planets, and then you have all your gas giants, so Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, and then of course Jupiter's underneath. So I mean, these planets, they look really nice. And then, so you got all your planets, and then you even have, for each planet, you have the different moons. Now, not, I think Jupiter and Saturn have just, they're finding new moons all the time, right? So not every moon is going to, every planet's moon is going to be represented in this game, but the major ones are. So you can kind of see, you got Vesta and Ceres, and obviously Luna, our moon, is going to be, see, that's 3 moons right there. And it tells you right there, those are moons of Saturn. So, and there's information on each one of these that tells you, okay, if I'm going to explore this, there's 3 different types of tech: biology, physics, and engineering in this game. So, there you have it. So, components there, they're nice. I think the map for High Frontier is probably a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit nicer. But these are nice too. So there's your components. You get dice in this game, and then everything's going to be cardboard chits, as opposed to High Frontier that's going to use your wooden cubes, and it's got plastic discs and things like that. So now we'll go over to Spacecorp. So Spacecorp, probably of the 3, has the components that are it's hard for me to say this, probably good, better, best, right? So these are good components for Spacecorp. Better would be Stellar Horizons, and then High Frontier as far as just the board goes, board presence or table presence. All right. So here's your map of the inner solar system right out to the asteroid belt. And it doesn't look bad, but the detail's definitely not as nice as, say, Stellar Horizons, or at least as eye-catching as High Frontier. So the board looks nice. It's acceptable. All right, you've got cardboard chits, and you got your wooden cubes. You got stuff here. There's no factions in this game. You just have colors, right? You have yellow, red, blue, and purple, I think. And then for discoveries on planets, you got those kind of things. And then you've got quite a few cards, right? No dice in this game. It's all card-based type stuff. So if we were going to rate these games component-wise, I would have to give... I would probably have, and it's hard. I think I'm basically going to base it off of the board, right? Not the actual tokens or anything like that. The board would have to go to High Frontier. So I give that a 3, since there's 3 games in the thing. 3 games that I'm comparing. So High Frontier gets 3, Stellar Horizons gets 2, and then Spacecorp would get a 1. But Spacecorp stuff isn't, I got to give somebody a 1, right? And Spacecorp happens to be the one that gets the 1. But their components are not bad. Now let's cover rules of play. So we'll go back down to High Frontier. Or rules and play. So I'm just going to get this out there right now. The rules for High Frontier are an absolute disaster. 2nd edition. 3rd edition, I don't know. I've read some people's comments, and they say it's hard to get your head wrapped around the rules. To me, the rules are an absolute disaster. When I bought High Frontier, Spacecorp and Stellar Horizons didn't exist. It was the only build your own planetary exploration game out there available. And I really wanted to like it, but I just could not get my head wrapped around the rules. I would spend more time trying to figure out how to do something than actually doing something. And when I say doing something, I mean playing the game. So I spent more time looking at the rules and trying to figure what Phil Eklund meant than actually being able to play the game and enjoy it. So now, with that being said, let's see. So the movement in the game, you got to build your rocket, and you build the technology, and you're building your rocket is accomplished. This is your tech tree. I think in the base game you have, and it's been so long since I've played it, I know I'm going to get this jacked up. All right, so generators aren't in the base game. Radiators, I think So you have, I don't need that one. So you have Robonauts. You have thrusters. Thrusters is how you get your, that's where you get your movement points from, right? So thrusters are, you know, the better the thruster, the more you can move. And I want to say refineries. That's how you know what, honestly, I don't even remember. I think, but in the base game, it's definitely Robonauts. Well, not definitely. It's Robonauts, thrusters, and refineries. And then in the advanced game, you add generators, radiators, reactors. So this is your tech, right? So you divide, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to have these cards divided up into decks on the board. And then you have an auction. And then if you're playing a multiplayer game, you're going to bid, right? And the currency in this game is water, which is represented by the blue discs. So I believe the mass is how, so basic game. So it's going to cost you 3 water if you bid on that. Let's see, basic game. Yeah, so there we go. Yep. Yeah, so here's your basic game stuff. It even says it right there. So this is your tech. And if I'm not mistaken, like you flip so many cards over and like you're not going to be able to build the perfect rocket because it's only going to be based on what cards you can see, not every card in the deck. So you're just going to have to piece together a rocket that can basically do the best that you can do. And if you look at the artwork on the card, like this stuff, like this carbon chlorination refinery, like this is real stuff, right? That they're either working on or is stuff that they're trying to make work. So this is all based in reality, right? So these are your cards, and this is how you get them is you bid on it, and then you build the rocket with the best cards that you can get. And then you try to fly to your different places, and it's a big math puzzle, right? Like, so to fly around the map, you have to have so much thrust to be able to leave Earth, and then like all these points on the map, like, so this point's going to cost you so many things, and like if you want to go along that line, then it costs you X amount of points. But if you go to get to this intersection and you want to go this way, then it's going to cost you more movement. And it's just a humongous math puzzle. And it can get pretty confusing. And that's part of the reason, just trying to figure out how to build your rocket and how to do everything. And then once you discover like like certain cards can be flipped over and then they can be used to build refineries and better thrusters, and it can be super duper confusing. And the rules, again, I'll go back to the rules. The rules are, I don't know if this is true, I've never researched it, but I know Phil Eklund's a doctor. He's a smart guy, right? And I think, this is my opinion, I think he writes his own rules. He doesn't have anybody proofread them or anything like that, and that's why they're a disaster. Yeah, they're living rules online where the community has come together and done this and that, but the rules are absolutely, the way they're written, I think, is part of the problem. I mean, if I can play a game like, World in Flames or any war game in solitaire, I should be able to figure out a game like High Frontier. But for whatever reason, I can't get my head around it. So the rules in the play are just, it's confusing. All right, so enough on that. I kind of beat up High Frontier. So let's move over to Stellar Horizons. Rules are a lot more straightforward in Stellar Horizons. There's still issues with the rules. Some things are not readily apparent in the game, and I'll give you a pretty decent example. So one of the examples is there's a lot of, so if you look on these these chits, right? There's a lot of icons on the chits. So you got this, which means ore. This is fuel. That means carrying capacity. This is your crude exploration value. Then there's a sub icon right there with that little gear. So you can see that there's a lot of icons. There's a lot of icons on that one. This means it has a combat value, blah, blah, blah. Right? So there's a lot of iconology in the game. Well, the rules, so this icon right here, the shield icon, so you can see that shield icon. Nowhere in the rules is that shield icon referenced anywhere. And there are sections of the rule book that show you the different icons. And there's several, right? So like this is just the icons for vehicles. And then you have a section, where is it? Where is it? See, now I can't even find it. I think it might be on the it might be on the board somewhere, but they really needed a master icon sheet and an explanation of what each one of those does. So for example, you have your exploration icons. So that's basic sensors, have a mobile lab, and then you have a spectrometer. Well, if you have the mobile lab, I had to hand write that in there because it's easier for me to go and see the icons, and then you could have had a little explanation as to what that mobile lab means. But the way it is without me writing that in there, okay, so I look on my piece, I see, okay, that's a mobile lab. Now I have to flip through the book to find out what the mobile lab does. So that cargo and production one, it took me forever to find all the pieces and put that together. It requires space mining. So that's one of your technologies in the game. So there are things, the rules could have probably used a little bit better once over, right? Another look. So here's your tech tree. So here you got your tech tree, you've got engineering, you've got physics, and you got biology. So the tech tree never changes in the game, right? The tech tree in High Frontier can change based on what cards get flipped up and are available. So there's variability here. There's no variability in the technology here. So basically, if you want to research destroyers, you have to either explore it this way, and you can see the lines on it, right? So you can get destroyers through physics as well. But the tech tree, for the most part, is very linear. And you earn biology research and physics research and engineering research by exploring planets. So it is kind of, the progress is kind of linear, right? It's pretty much set forward as far as your tech tree goes on how you're going to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So as far as variability goes, there's not going to be a lot of variability. Where you get your variability is right here, your world box. So once you have explored this planet and retained certain results, then this card will change to something else. So what will happen is when you explore and you get certain results, you'll draw from a stack of these. There's a huge stack of these cards, and that will change what goes right here. So you'll kind of just put that there, and things will change. Now this asteroid cannot go on Neptune, but you get the point. There's a whole stack of these things, and they all kinds of variability there. So that's where your variability goes. And I think, from my experience, and I've only played the game once, that is about your only variability is here in your different world cards. You're going to be doing a lot of dice rolling in this game, right? There's always percentages, so I don't know if we'll be able to see it. Here's a good one right here. So signs of life, 2%. Atmosphere plus 20%. So you're going to be rolling a lot of percentiles. Like every time you move, you have to see if your ship blows up. Every time you explore, you have to roll the dice to see if your telescope or your rover or whatever becomes inoperable. So you're going to be doing a lot of dice rolling. And if you're anything like me, you have a 2% chance for your rocket to blow up on the launch pad. I always roll a 2%. It just never seems to fail. You spend all this money building up a ship, and then you roll to see if it makes it into space, it blows up. So, and the same thing happens in High Frontier too. It's like I think there's just a 6-sided die in High Frontier. Like you roll a 1, boom, it blows up, or whatever. So, rules need a little bit of work. An iconography sheet would have been great. Like in this game, I think you get a couple of rule books, and then the game will play up to 7, and the game plays up to 7, and there's several different player aids, but not one of them has anything to do with iconology. And that's one of the things you're going to be looking at the most, because if you look at your chits, and these are like on your launch vehicles, these are self-explanatory. They're pretty easy, but it's just the little obscure ones like this guy right here with that little symbol there and that little symbol there. It's the little symbols are the ones that get you, the ones that you don't use quite as often. So anyway, rules and play. The play is fine. You're going to be rolling a lot of dice. If you don't like rolling dice all the time, then this one's not going to be necessarily the one for you. All right, let's move on to Spacecorp. So Spacecorp, obviously done by GMT Games. Stellar Horizon by Compass. High Frontier is a or Sierra Madre, which is Phil Eklund's company. So, rules. Typical GMT fashion, the rule book is about as outstanding as you can get. Those guys can do rules. Now, obviously, there's always going to be, an exception or whatever, but rules are super easy. Like, it took me 15, 20 minutes to read the rule book. I had there's always going to be a couple outlying, okay, what do you do here? What do you do here? But pretty intuitive as far as the rule book goes. Playing the game, it's to me, it was a breeze. I jumped right into it. There's 3 different eras that you can play in this. So you've got you're starting out with your Mariners era. Then when you're done playing Mariners, you go to your Planeteer phase, which is played on a different board. And then you flip this board over and you use this one in conjunction with this one. So you can see this is the inner solar system for the Mariners. This is the first phase of the game. You can play just this phase and then be done with it. If you want a nice, quick, short game, you can be done with it. Then you go to the Planeteers phase, which gets you all the way out to Pluto and the Oort cloud. So you can play the Mariners phase and then move on to the Planeteers phase, or you can just jump in at the Planeteers phase if you want. It's up to you. So if you want a longer game, you do Mariners and then Planeteers. And then you can even go to the Starfarers, which takes you outside of our solar system into other, I believe, other solar systems. So yeah, it's other star systems. So, and you can see the Mariners is from 2025 to 2069. And then the Planeteers is from 2070 probably to 2140 or 2149. Yep, 2070 to 2149. And then Starfarers takes you all the way to almost 2300. So I played the complete game. I did Mariners, Planeteers, and Starfarers, and I enjoyed it. It doesn't have a tech tree like the other 2 games, so this is basically... So there's no dice in this game, so everything is basically card-driven, which I like. Card-driven is simple. You have different actions that you can do on your turn. You can move. So if you have move cards in your hand, and... so you got your boxes, right? I'm not going to use the Starfarers because the numbers get a little bit higher. But if you are at the lunar Lagrange point number 5 and you want to go to solar Lagrange point 5, it would cost you 1 to leave and then 1 to get here, and then you land. So it would cost you 2 movement points. If you wanted to get from Earth to the moon, it costs you 1 to leave Earth, plus 2 for the gravity, and then 1 to land. So pretty simple, right? And you have to have movement cards to do that. So if you have 4 points worth of movement cards in your hand, then you just use those. Here you go. There's 5 total points, so you just use, as long as you're equal to or greater than the value, then I can move to the moon. So you can move, you can build structures, you can produce, you can explore, and there's a couple of other ones. You can research, you can genetics, and I think that's it in the first phase of the game. As you move on, then there are a couple of other options that open up. Research and genetics. Yep. And then once you get to Planeteers and Starfarers, then you can do Revelations. So in the inner solar system, you can look for life, and that's about it. Well, that's not about it, but you can search for life, you can do other things, but as you get out into like Starfarers, you can find other alien technologies or alien colonies or whatever. So the bot that you play against, and this is, I got my butt kicked. I'm sure it's because some of the rules I wasn't quite familiar with, so by the time I got to Starfarers, there was things that I had forgotten about or whatever. But the rules overall were very simple and straightforward. I had a great time playing it. So if I was going to rank these 3 games on rules and play, Spacecorp would get 3, Stellar Horizons would get 2, and then High Frontier would get a 1. Fun factor, again, all this stuff is subjective. It's based off of my opinion. But fun factor, Spacecorp easily gets the 3. Because I just got done playing Spacecorp. I did Stellar Horizons and Spacecorp back to back. And because once I got done playing Stellar Horizons, I was like, yeah, let me play Spacecorp. Let me see which of the 2 that I like the best. So again, fun factor, Spacecorp gets a 3. Stellar Horizons gets a 2. High Frontier gets a 1. I mean, so if we look at it, Spacecorp has 7 points, Stellar Horizons has 6 points, and then High Frontier has 5 points. Again, that's just it's a very small rating scale. High Frontier really did. And then there's other games that Eklund has done, that like Biogenesis or Biosgenesis or whatever. Which one was it? It's the one where you basically evolve your creature from Bios Megafauna. I wanted to like that game. Couldn't figure the rules out. Got rid of it. High Frontier, for whatever reason, I just kind of have kept, because there's always that hope that I might be able to figure it out one day. But it's a disaster. Can't figure it out. Stellar Horizons, I wanted that game to be the game that I wanted High Frontier to be. And it's a good game, and I need to play it a little bit more. But it's not quite there, and I think the rules writing kind of are what ruined it for me. Spacecorp, that right there. I mean, for the time invested, I played Spacecorp once, and I probably spent 4 or 5 hours playing it. But that is all three. That's starting at Mariners, moving to Planeteers, and then going to Starfarers. I played all 3 of those to make one big game, and I really, really enjoyed it. I played the introductory scenario, the one-player scenario in Stellar Horizons, and it was okay. So there you have it. There is my opinion of those 3 games. And Spacecorp has an expansion that you can pre-order too. So I mean, as much as I enjoyed Spacecorp, the expansion would hopefully make it even more enjoyable to play. I mean, if it's terrible, then I mean, I think the base game is still good. But there you have it. Probably the three biggest build your own space program games, and my opinion. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you guys are living your best life out there and staying out of trouble and staying out of, not getting sick or anything like that. So anyway, that's it for now.